Good evening, Galaxy fans. Good evening, Galaxy fans. My name is Mike Gray. I cover both LA Galaxy and LAFC for the Striker. Hope you're all doing well. Here tonight is my faithful co-host. He is the beat writer for the Galaxy for the Striker. Say hello to Alex Ruiz.
Yo, we are here on a Thursday, and the Galaxy won the other day, so that's good.
Yeah, that's always nice. It's nice for us to be in a positive mood. Not have the pitchforks out for once, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean, who would have known the upcoming matchup for the U.S. Open Cup, man?
oh,
Who would have
dude.
known, dude? Who would have known?
Oh yeah. We're gonna have to talk about it a little later because that draw was just a tad match fixy, just a little bit. I
Yeah, we'll talk
mean,
about it later. I have my thoughts about that.
we're just getting warmed up. So, dude, I'm in a good mood. Tomorrow I'm actually gonna see the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They're
Nice.
they're a band, Alex. I don't know
I'm
if you
not that
youngins.
old. I'm not that young, Mike.
Hey, look, dude. Like I know how you youngins are. I know how you guys love the bad money. It's cool. I'm old. I accept it. But I'm excited not only because it's a good band and because Mars Volta are playing and they're one my favorite weirdo band ever. But yeah, the game's gonna be at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego, and I'm excited because there's been rumors going around that the 30th MLS franchise is going to San Diego, and they would actually be playing at that exact stadium. It's supposed to be really cool. I really want to go see the Wave play Angel City FC at that stadium, so that's
That
going to
would
be
be
really
fun.
cool too. I've only got one concern, which is that Lars, and by the way, if you haven't heard of it, Lars is doing an online forum this Friday at 7 o'clock, I believe, to address the boycott, address concerns from fans. It's going to be a cool thing. You should show up. Sign up for it right now. Go for it. Do it. Subscribe to the channel also, whatever. But let's see, what was it? My only concern is that I'm getting there at 6:30. So maybe I can get there, like grab a beer. Maybe if I'm lucky, head to the merch tent, grab some stuff, and then sit my butt down and then just kind of sit there for an hour and just, maybe I could participate. So we'll see. But moving on, because we're not here to talk about Mike's personal life. You're right. The Galaxy defeated the Sounders in the Open Cup, and I tell you what, Alex, it was a little scary because AS, a very credible news source, they came out with a report saying that there were sources talking about AEG, AEG leadership meeting to discuss the dismissal of Greg Vanny and potentially even Chris Klein. That was a new development, and regardless of whether it's true or not, you knew there was going to be a ton of pressure on the Galaxy. So it was funny. Jalen Neal, the morning of on CBS Sports Golazo, he had an interview and. He did a great job, and he was very empathetic about how he was he emphasized how the Galaxy were taking this Open Cup very seriously, and sure enough, Greg Vanny put out a first choice lineup. You had Tyler Boyd and Gino Vivi both earning starts, whereas Daniel Velic, he actually got a start. They put him on the bench. So, Alex, tell us, what did you like about yesterday's victory? Excuse
Yeah,
me,
I mean, just
Tuesdays.
going back to that 4-3-3, right? I mean, it's the formation that the Galaxy were at their best at last year, and the reason because of that was because of the wide play from Granciera, Cabral, or Costa, right? This game, Vivi and Boyd were basically on the touch lines at all times. They were really stretching out that field for the rest of the team, and you could really notice it. I mean, that's kind of the one thing I noticed the first 10 minutes into the game. Like, wow, these guys are like playing out wide. They're really able to kind of allow for there to be more space in the midfield and allow for them to kind of, play the ball out wide and move the back line a little bit, kind of shift the movement here and there, switch the play when needed. And I thought it was really good. I thought Boyd was all right. I think Vivi was a little too conservative at times, but that's okay. I understand his first career start. He's not going to try to take everybody on one, and that obviously wouldn't be the wise decision to do at that position. So I thought he was solid as well, did good. He had Memo Rodriguez kind of come in and play for Vivi, replaced him at around the 64th minute. Rodriguez with 2 goals. It was really great to see him get on the score sheet. After the game, he kind of talked about how, it just felt good for him to score, get that monkey off the back after having a rough season last year with Houston. And, he said that these 2 goals felt like the first 2 goals of his career. That joy that comes with scoring goals. Him celebrating, I think that was a good sight to see because so many times he's been a little disappointing or, you kind of expect a little bit more out of him and he hasn't delivered in MLS play. So, seeing him get 2 goals, I think was great for his morale and the morale of the team. Again, I think it was really a good game from Ricky Puig. Was really able to kind of dominate the midfield and dictate the play. You can kind of see Seattle was kind of playing with the B/C team, and Ricky Puig was just a tier above everybody else on the pitch. Like his technical ability was unmatched. He was able to spin his way out of things, just have the ball at his feet, just move so elegantly and so well, and was really dangerous in the midfield. So he was definitely somebody that I really like to kind of see him get into that rhythm as well too. Seeing Jonathan Bond back was really good. Having that shoulder injury, so he made a couple of big saves. I think that 1 goal he conceded, Galaxy defense has to do a little bit better there. I don't really put that on Bond, but overall, I thought he had a good game. Was really smart in the decisions he made when he got out of the box, when he wanted to, play sweeper keeper at times. So a lot of good positives take away from this game, but at the same time, this is against the Seattle B team, C team. No Joe Ramirez, no Raul Ruiz, no Christian Roldan. I'm not really going to put too much weight into this game, but again, it's just good to kind of get this sense of a victory. Being able to kind of lift, losing 5 of the last 6 games, kind of, lift that off a little bit. And I think that was really needed. So, I think this was the right situation right now for the Galaxy heading into the Cali Clasico.
I agree. You hit the nail on the head, Alex. The Galaxy, as good of a performance it was, they did beat a lineup that was second, perhaps even third string. So you have to keep that in mind, especially in the central midfield. I do believe that the Galaxy still struggle to create clear-cut chances in the 4-3-3. This was one of the main criticisms when he tried deploying it earlier in the year and in the preseason. LA just weren't very dangerous. Now, Vanny did have he did agree, and I agree with his criticism, which is that the players, you mentioned it with Gino Vivi, the players are playing a bit too conservative at times. You really have to believe in the system, and you really have to like be all bought in to, get the most out of it. And sometimes that means making a run and just, knowing that you're going to get that pass. Sometimes it means playing, a somewhat it's considered a scary ball, but having that trust that your teammate's going to be there when you play it, and I'll give Vanny some I'll give Vanny some credit. This is the first game that he's deployed that formation in a while. He's got players that have better continuity, so let's see what happens. Efra, we got to talk about Mr. Alvarez because we had high hopes for him coming into the year. We all knew that preseason was preseason, not to get our hopes up. But, what really sticks out for me was when Robbie Keane, handed Efra the number 7 shirt. At the time, we were very high on if not the gesture, just his form. But that's what it's starting to feel like. It's starting to feel like a gesture. Like maybe it was the last throw of the dice. Like let's just hype this kid up. Let's do everything we can to give him the tools he needs to be successful. And he just hasn't risen to the top.
Yeah, I worry about that too. I think Vanny kind of mentioned, some players were left out because for the US Open Cup, they're only allowed 18 instead of the normal 20 in Major League Soccer. But nonetheless, I mean, Efrain Alvarez's minutes have gone down tremendously in the last month or two. Like he's barely seen the field. And I think, since that Portland game, I think that's when it all started, where that was his last kind of meaningful minutes that he got, where he maybe played 20, 25 minutes. And then since then, he's, been did not play. Coach's decisions did not play. Maybe 5 minutes off the bench here or there, 10 minutes off the bench. He hasn't really gotten that consistent play time. And again, like you mentioned, right, heading into the season, saying, he told me that this needed to be his breakout year. You had, the Galaxy posting about, Robbie Keane delivering the number 7 to him by hand. You know, a big moment there from a club legend and a player with a stature, Robbie Keane. not just in LA Galaxy, but in world soccer as well. Like he's a big time player. So kind of seeing that happen, it set the expectations that for Alvarez, this needs to be it. And I think everybody within the Galaxy organization kind of knows that this needs to be it for him. I understand, he's still very young, 20, 21 years old, right? But at the same time, you got to consider his development has just plateaued in the last 2, 3 years. There's been nothing of a breakthrough in his game. And it's going to be really hard to kind of see him get those valuable minutes because he can't be like Tyler Boyd or Gino Vivi and play on the touchline on the end line there. That's not his game. He doesn't have the pace or any of the physical attributes to kind of be a guy to make runs in behind and be a threat on the dribble. He's a technical guy, but I mean that can only do you so much if physically you're just can't really fit into the system. And with Ricky Puig out there, you kind of see him be quick on the ball. I don't see Efrain Alvarez as quick on the ball like Ricky Puig. Sure, Efra has a great left foot and, he can kind of dribble in little tight spaces, but he's not like Ricky Puig who can dribble in and out, spin out his situations, get out of pressure easily. So right now, it's not looking too bright for Efrain Alvarez. And if there's a time for him to get minutes, it's going to be this month, considering they have 5 more MLS games, and then now the El Trafico added for the 23rd. So there has to be, at least if I'm Alvarez, you have to get on the field and show something this month, because if not, you're most likely gone in the summer, if I'm being honest.
Chicharito has been prolific the past 2 seasons. Dejan Joveljic has been prolific off the bench this past season. So this year, the big problem was how do you make both of these players happy, and how do you get them both playing time? I don't think any of us anticipated what's actually happened, which is Javi's form has fallen off a cliff a little bit, and then Dejan Joveljic, this was supposed to be his year. He's been getting more playing time, and as a starter, he hasn't been cutting it. And so, Alex, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's just so hard to kind of see Chicharito right now because, I was noticing it watching the game, but technically he's just regressed a little bit. I mean, he's a guy who's going to come in deep in the field, kind of get involved in the build-up play, and he's done that so many times since Greg Vanney's taken over the club, and he's really excelled in that role. I mean, he's a guy who's not afraid to have the ball, facing his back facing goal, being able to kind of build out and open up spaces, drag out center backs. And it's really effective when you can be good on the ball and you're able to kind of have this ability to maybe beat a guy on the dribble or something. We've seen Chicharito kind of do that a couple of times here or there. But this season it's just been off. His touch has just been too heavy at times. His when he receives the ball, he just doesn't get it cleanly enough. It gets poked away or stripped away from him. Just so many times this season, the Galaxy have had an attack and they've gone to Chicharito in the middle of the field to kind of, give him the ball, move it around a little bit. But he just ends up being dispossessed and the attack fizzles out. And again, it's one of the things Greg Vanney likes to preach a lot about how this team physically gets wasted when it comes to recovering the ball a lot because they want to play this great soccer, be very intricate. But if it goes wrong, it's it's mentally and physically taxing for them to have to recover, put their heads down, go run after the ball, and continuously do that. And I think for Chicharito, the finishing, hasn't really been there this season. If we really, look at the grand scheme of things of what he's, doing, just 1 goal so far, if I'm correct. And he's had a couple of chances to make it more, but hasn't put it in the back of net. Even in chances that were offside, I remember against Austin, when we won with Stuber, he was offside, but it hit the crossbar, I think. And I'm just like, even if that wasn't offside, like he's got to put that away in some degree. So it was definitely something that I'm going to keep an eye on these next couple of games. I will remind everybody last season that Chicharito kind of, I wouldn't say had a similar start to this, but goal scoring wise, struggled the first 10, 12 games of the season for him. Maybe had 2, 3 goals, wasn't really putting the ball in the back of the net, and it looked like his age was catching up to him. But obviously, the second half of the season came around, and he was just on fire. I think he had like 10 goals in 10 games at one point in the season, and he was really, really good. And he was showing that prowess in finishing we all know and think about when we see Chicharito. So there's still time. And again, this is a contract year for him. If there's any time to perform your career best, I mean, he's had some 2 great seasons with the Galaxy goal scoring wise. He needs to perform this year if he wants to stay with the club. And, at 36 years old, it's going to be really hard, to kind of say, hey, I want to be back here as a designated player, but my scoring numbers are down and I'm regressing when it comes to my passing. So I think if there's one player that is going to be, there's going to be a lot of focus on from the front office on, it's going to be on Chicharito and the way he's playing and the way he's growing into the season. Because if he doesn't get back to that form and he struggles on the ball, I think we're seeing the last of him. But again, way too early to kind of say it was big. Oh, we're not going to see him anymore after this year. But it's definitely something to think about and something that I think a lot of Galaxy fans should really notice this next game. Just how does he look on the ball when he gets the ball? Does he lose the ball quickly? Things like that really affect the Galaxy. Although it might not look like it when you're watching the game, but when you're on the pitch, it's mentally, and physically taxing for you having to go and recover that ball.
Well, and dude, what about Joveljic? I mean, I know that right now the front office it's a little busy. It's got some problems of its own, but this is his third year with the Galaxy. Does Joveljic think that he has a future with the club if he has to wait it out for yet another year? I'm not so sure. At that point, how many years does he have left on his contract? That was the big thing, is they needed to get him more minutes this year, and as of now, they still haven't figured that out. So
I mean, he
that's
started this season. I mean, he got those minutes, and he's with Chicharito out, he's been able to play. But again, him being a starter hasn't led to victories for this Galaxy team. I think I posted it a couple of times this year. The Galaxy's record when he is a starter. It's just purely in MLS. Doesn't include Open Cup or any of those other tournaments. But when the team is playing in Major League Soccer Day and Joveljic is leading the line for this LA Galaxy team, they just can't seem to get wins. And obviously, there's a lot of context missing to it. And there's definitely, it's not just the number or it's not his fault, but it's definitely such an interesting, correlation between those two things: Joveljic starting and the team's success. And I kind of have to really look at it and examine every single game and kind of see, but it's just such an interesting thing to me. And I think, uh, I don't know. I think I need to just like talk to Greg Vanny about it because I feel like he might have a better perspective on it because it's such an interesting and a weird stat because this guy's a goal scorer. He scores goals.
it
He can
is,
score from
Alex.
anywhere,
I
and
mean,
yet he can't lead to 3 points for this team. I think the
well,
only time,
Vanny's explanation was that they're both nines, that they both
yeah.
live for like the box, and they don't want to be hybrids, which I suppose makes sense. But you're right. All right, one quick question before we move on. Chris Maldonado asks, "What do you think of Gino Vivi's performance?"
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I mentioned earlier, a little bit conservative. Again, I think he's just got good raw abilities. I think mentioned the speed that he has. He brings something different other than Memo Rodriguez. He's a little bit more vertical, more direct, and that's really what you need. Somebody who can kind of just be a space guy. Not every winger needs to be a guy who's goal dangerous at times. An example that I like to bring up a lot is Kingsley Coman for Bayern Munich. Like he's a guy who starts a lot of games for them. He doesn't score many goals or have many assists, but the fact that he's such a threat on their back line, that he has that speed and pace, that's something that's enough for him to start for Bayern and enough for him to be a dangerous player for other players. Kind of like how Cabral was. Obviously, he got in way, a player like him, you got to put some of those chances away. But, we saw a player of, who can make those runs and with that pace and, that positional awareness, how dangerous they are and how much they affect the team in a good way. So I think Vivi's got
A
those qualities
dangerous
to do
former
that.
Bayern player. Wow, that sounds awesome! I
I
can't
know. If
wait.
only the Galaxy had one, right? Yeah,
Arr.
yeah. But again, I think there's a lot of good things to Vivi's game. First game, I expect there to be a lot of nerves, even though it's an Open Cup game. But overall, I think he's a guy who's gonna probably get more minutes as the season progress.
Did I just make like a pirate noise? I mean, maybe I was
Yeah.
like, Arr! I mean, maybe I had a next segment in mind because there was definitely some scallywag activity. Okay, we need to talk about the draw because it was very match fixy. If you watched it live on YouTube, they were selecting the final pot. So it was the Galaxy, LAFC, Colorado Rapids, and Real Salt Lake. Colorado was picked first. LAFC were picked second. They were hosting, and then something weird happened because there were two balls, and then it was in the ball, and he's kind of going like this, and then like he kind of like pokes one, and then he grabs one, and then he stops, and then he picks up the other one, and he goes, "Oh, look, it's actually Real Salt Lake."
It's funny to me because every time I always think of this, I always like kind of what you're talking about. I always think of the that Patrick Ewing conspiracy theory of the NBA lottery, where somebody kind of froze the envelope for the Knicks, kind of left a fold there. I will tell you though that you know I was really hoping that this matchup wouldn't happen again in this round. Um, it feels like so many times this game is just a marketing ploy more than it is an actual kind of meaningful game at times now. Obviously we had some really good ones and meaningful ones, like that first U.S. Open Cup. Obviously, first time they ever met, that was special. The playoff game last year, that was special. The Rose Bowl game was going to be special, but then you had another game between these two teams, maybe 6, 8 weeks later.
Yeah.
So it felt like they're kind of just watering it down a bit. And I would have liked to see the Galaxy go and visit Kevin Cabral again or something, or go against RSL and kind of that old rivalry back in the day. But the Open Cup got what they wanted to get, so it'll be at LAFC Stadium this time. So we'll see what happens. It'll be on a Tuesday, so I'll be interested to see what kind of crowd we get for that game. So, and it is what it is. I personally would have liked another matchup, but
This match is, yeah, it's oversaturated, dude. Once they went with like the three matchups a year, that's when it got weird. When you play twice a year, and especially when you have those games sort of set like towards the latter half of the year, there's this anticipation. I mean, one of the first away Traficos, I think it was the second one. There was like a 6 month buildup, and that's what creates that special kind of magic. Where for like the week of like, I mean, Alex, like. I'm talking to you like you're like a young or whatever, but like back in the day, like the first El Traficos, like the whole week, everybody was just hyped up, and it was just this event where people would go back and forth, and there'd be memes and all sorts of stuff. And yeah, imagine waiting 6 months for an El Trafico. And for me, this was always every time I watch it on YouTube, it's just one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen to the beginning of a game ever. LAFC's fans are going nuts. The Galaxy are just holding on because this is that like 1999 team that broke all the records. And then a minute and a half into the game, Zlatan scores and raises his arms. Like a minute and a half after you've been waiting for 6 months. That's what's missing from the rivalry. Well, that and Zlatan, but Javi and Vela, they had that little nice guy rivalry, and it doesn't really work. But yeah, so yeah, that draw was definitely match fixie. I think the worst part was like right afterwards when tried to do a little bit of like reverse where the guy goes, oh well, I know this looks bad, when the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, oh, actually we didn't cheat. That's gonna make people wonder what you actually did. But all right, I'm 80% joking, so you can
also
wonder
the
what
yeah, and it was a very weird draw to watch. I don't know where
there's like
so
there's like a
it's
really
so
tall
awkward 'cause
guy,
it feels it's so
a
awkward
really
because
short
it feels
guy,
like
and that was
these
weird
guys
too.
are like filming it in like their parents' basement or something. It's such an awkward like vibe there. I think it was on Bleacher Report to YouTube. I felt like I don't know. It's just such an awkward thing to watch. I would have just rather just give it to me in a press release than me have to kind of watch this.
Yeah, I know, it kind of sucked actually. Although, there was a little bit of anticipation, but whatever. Yeah, it would have been nice to get some Cabal revenge, but whatever. All right, let's actually get to the game because yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. The Cali Clasico. This is a bit of a rivalry week, isn't it? Sunday at 6:30. Again, it's gonna be the third home game for the Galaxy in 8 days, if you count the Open Cup. Lucian Gonzalez has his kids bawling because let's see, they're 5-3-3. They just defeated LAFC, and let's see. I guess for most people, the question is, how did they beat Los Angeles Football Club? How do they beat the black and gold? Because for most people, I hear around the league, you basically have to have a perfect game to beat them, and I'd say 2/3 of the teams in the league when they play LAFC, it's hard to match up with them man to man and to sort of take them on. But again, Lucha Gonzalez has really got his players performing at a high level. You have Christian Espinosa, who's having an MP3, an MVP season with 8 goals and 3 assists. Jeremy Bobasi, who's always been an elite striker. His one thing was that he hasn't been able to finish, right? 5 goals and 3 assists, so he's pulling that off.
Yeah, and
then,
he's a Galaxy killer. Like he has 8 goals in the last 11 career games against the Galaxy, which is crazy. And I think he's scored in the last 3 games that he's been at Dignity Health Sports Park. So a guy to watch for sure. And I think a big test for his Galaxy defense. Again, we want to see this team kind of keep it to 1 goal. Keep those clean sheets, and Bobasi, Espinosa, those guys are going to cause a lot of problems. So a big test for his Galaxy defense. Cáceres and Neon, we're gonna really get to see them get tested again. And Aude, after scoring that spectacular goal, he's gonna have to focus on the defensive side this game. So I'm really looking at that aspect, and I think the fullback's gonna be really important to this upcoming game. But I'll write about it in my keys to the match for you guys. It'll be up on the
Yeah, this
striker
is
on Sunday morning.
I rambled a bit at the beginning, but this is a different San Jose team. I mean, third minute of the game, the right back Paul Marie, he tackles Danny Buonga off the ball, pushes the ball past Palacios, hoofs it to midfield where, Ibobasi does this flick to, who was it, Montero. And right at the end is when the play fell apart. But, this team can carve you up in possession. And LAFC found out the hard way. I mean, Espinoza had his goal in the 8th minute, but Montero, he didn't have quite a great game because he missed like a point blank sitter. I don't think I've seen a team carve up LAFC as bad as San Jose did, particularly in that first half. And they were deserving winners, and in a way, they're back. So you're right. The Galaxy are going to have their work cut out for them. That header that Sounders scored 3-1, we were talking about earlier. Caligari just fell asleep for a second. Didn't realize he had a guy behind him. Prioritized, just sort of double teaming, and then what happens a lot, and this is for me as a basketball thing, but typically when you get a cross in, 70-80% of the time, it's not going to go backwards. It's going to keep going. And so that's my little observation. But yeah, I wasn't surprised to see that go in, and that was a little disappointing. What was not disappointing was Bond returning. Not only was he, back to the top of his game, but it was like he had never left, and that's important because I think I disagree with some of the other beat reporters who believe that there's not much of a difference between the two. I think that the two have different strengths, and when you sort of the cumulative, just sort of total package, yes, I don't think that there's a huge difference between the two. But what Bond is good at is, certain things like managing the game. We saw that versus Seattle, and then Vanny talked about mature moments, and I think that he was just trying not to take a dig at Klinsmann a little bit. But yeah, it's nice to have a keeper out there that is going to make the save and isn't going to make a mistake.
Yeah, I think so. He's definitely a very commanding presence back there. I think having these new guys in there too, right? Like I think the one thing that helps is that Bond speaks Spanish and he shouts directions out to them in Spanish, and I think that's a huge boost for Caligari and Aude and Cáceres. I mean, three of those guys are from Latin America, so I think having him lead and shout instructions at them is so helpful, and I think that's one of the mature things that Vanny was referencing. He's a player that's using things that off the ball, like speaking Spanish, and being able to have that experience in many leagues in England, and being able to know what it's like to kind of play at the top level as he's backup goalkeeper in the Premier League. So I think it was great to see Bond back. I think he's just a better overall shot stopper than Klinsmann. I think Klinsmann's better with his feet and kind of getting the transition going a little bit more. But your goalkeepers need to be good shot stoppers in first thing. So I think Bond kind of just knocks the edge over Klinsmann in that department, and that's all that matters in a goalkeeper.
Alex, 7 o'clock, buddy. We gotta go, which is a little disappointing because I mean I like hanging here. I like talking to you. If you're in the chat, I feel like I got to give you a round of applause. Thank you for listening. Again, Alex, we got to go, man. So my name's Mike Gray. I cover both the LA Galaxy and LAFC for the Striker. This is my co-host, Alex Ruiz, who covers the Galaxy as our beat writer for the Striker. Read his articles. They're really good. Subscribe to the Striker. It's really good. It's worth it.